Welcome to my sewing room. We have such a fun and exciting show for you today. Let me kind of share with you what we're going to do. This little A-line jumper for little girls, and it is a lined jumper, was one of my very favorite things for Joanna to wear. It's one of the very favorite things for my granddaughters to wear. And it's really very simple to make, very easy to make, and one of the things that I think you can kind of throw together in a flash and have a really good looking outfit for your little daughter or your granddaughter. These are just several different variations. The technique which we're going to share with you today is exactly how it is that you line in a very simple way one of these little jumpers. Actually, once you get the swing of it, you can probably put one together in just, a very, very short period of time. And I do believe it will be something that will be enjoyed by all the little girls in your family. To share with you the construction techniques on this jumper, I have as my guest today, Kathy McMakin. Kathy is the construction editor for Sew Beautiful magazine. I'd like to welcome her to the show.
Girls' line jumpers are so easy to construct, and you know, if you use fashion fabric for the lining and for the outer fabric, then this jumper is also reversible. The jumper that we are going to make today is green on the outer fabric and peach on the lining fabric. Now, all you need to do this jumper is 2 pattern pieces. You need a front and a back. Then you will cut out the front and the back from the lining fabric and the outer fabric. Once you get that done, then you put the lining right sides together and you stitch the side seam in place. Then you do the same thing to the outer fabric. You're going to stitch this side seam in place so that when you put them together, right sides together, that the back will line up with the back and the front will line up with the front. Once you have both the pieces, the side seams sewn together, then you're going to place them on top of each other, just like we said, right sides together, so that's seam to seam. And then you're going to stitch around the top edge of the jumper, all the way across the front at the top. And then you'll come down and sew the hems together. So we've just sewn the lining to the outer across the top and across the hem. Then you'll take the scissors and you'll place clips all in your curves so that when you turn the garment, that the seam will lay very nice and flat. Then once you have this sewn at the top and at the bottom, then you are going to place your hand through. You've created a tube with the lining and the outer fabric, and I'm placing my hand between the lining and the outer fabric. And then we'll pull one side through to the other side, and then it's going to look like this. This has already been pulled through, and you can see the lining and the outer fabric has been pulled through so that the side seams match. The outer fabric is to the outer fabric and the lining fabric is to the lining fabric. Now this is just a circle right here. And we're going to go to the sewing machine and we are going to sew that circle together, and we're going to leave a little opening in that circle. But first, let's just review what we've done on the boards. We placed the lining fabric to the outer fabric and we've put them right sides together, and then we sew across the top of the garment, and then we sew across the hem. So that's really all we've done. We've sewn the top in place and we've sewn the hem in place. And the reason we can sew all the way across the top is because this little jumper buttons on the shoulder. So the shoulders of both the front and the back are stitched separately. Now then, once we do this, then we're going to turn it so that we can stick our hand through that created tube between the outer and the lining, and we just pull one side through to the other. And then we're going to give it a little shake to remove all the excess fabric. And then we're going to line up the hem seams, and we're going to line up the seams under the arm, and this is the circle that we are going to sew together, and we're going to leave an opening in the lining side. Now I already have one sewn together, pinned together, ready to sew. And I use a little trick because I get a little over anxious when I start sewing like this, knowing that I'm going to this is a real quick and easy project. And so sometimes I'll just sew that opening closed. So what I usually do is take pins of a different color, and this time we're using red pins, pins with the red head on them. And we'll start and stop at those red pins, and that will leave us an opening to turn our jumper through. So let's start sewing. And we'll start, and we will start with a back stitch. We'll take a few stitches, and then we'll back stitch. And then we'll sew the lining to the lining and the outer to the outer. And this is going to end up being the side seam of the jumper. And we know we can sew very quickly because we don't see any of those red pins to give us our stop sign to quit sewing. Okay, now we're coming to our other pin, and we'll sew, and then when we get to the pin we'll need to back stitch, and we'll raise our needle, we'll pull, okay, then we'll remove these pins, we'll just put them over here, okay, and then we'll start turning the jumper through this opening. And we're just going to turn and turn and turn. And it's not going to really look like a jumper in the beginning. It'll just look like a mess, really. But you keep turning and turning and turning. And then you can find one of the seams, the hem seam, and give it a little shake, and then you can start pushing your straps through so that they extend at the top of both the front and the back. Okay, and then we'll push these through. Now I already have one pressed for you so that you can see what it looks like when it's pressed. But you can see it just takes a little while after you do all of your stitching and you leave that little opening. It takes just a minute to get it all turned through. And you can see it's turning through very nicely. Okay. Now if you forgot to clip, you'll need to go back in and clip those curves because they will not lay flat unless you clip them. Now this jumper has already been pressed for you, and you can see this is our outer fabric. And then if we peek under to the lining, you can see there is our opening that we pulled the jumper through to the right side, and we're ready to hand stitch the opening closed. Now, isn't that easy? I think anybody can make a line jumper or a reversible jumper. Now Martha has a beautiful home decorating project to show you.
This is the sweetest little pillow. As you can see, it looks like a fan. Has a little tassel at the bottom, and there are lace motifs in here, and the laces are shaped in all kinds of different shapes, and the sweetest little hearts are right up here at the top. Now the pillow is made actually on a beautiful piece of tapestry. Although when I turn it back over, you can see it just looks like a solid brown underneath, but it really isn't. This tapestry is truly a beautiful fabric. We have chosen to use the brown side, but look here. It would have been just as beautiful with the colors of pinks and blues and all those wonderful colors in it too. Okay, let's make this pillow now. First of all, you trace your template off on a piece of paper. Then I have two layers. The first is a netting, just a bridal netting, and then this is a water-soluble stabilizer that I'll be using to stitch right through and to pin through. Now what I'd like to share with you today is making this lace heart. All right, let me come around. I have pinned the outside of this lace, and I'm going to come around into the middle. All right, to pin lace in a curve, I pin on the outside, and I have a board under here, lace shaping board, that I can just stick the pins into. And you see I have my little lace motif in the middle. Now then, when I get to the middle, like you've seen in the heart, I put, and let me pull it down here, this little lace wants to run away from me sometimes, a pin at the top and a pin at the bottom. Now then, I'm going to pull the lace back on itself in order to make the miter, remove the pin that goes through 2 layers like that, and looky here what a beautiful miter is folded in. Now, I'm going to come around here and show you once again, or rather, really I haven't shown you today, how to pin the lace in a curve. I simply come in, pin the outside edge, and I go all the way around the heart like this. I'm going to come all the way around here, all the way around the heart, pinning it all the way around the side here. Pull the little lace motif up where it will fit all the way around here. Now when I get to the center bottom of this heart, wait a minute, let me show you how to pull it first. Now we've got a little bit of heart trouble here. Do you see how that lace is not laying down yet? Now watch. I'm going to pull it, and look here how magically it happens. There's a string, a pull cord built into this beautiful lace. I pulled it and it lay down, and then I'll go over to the other side and do the same thing. I will pull the little lace cord, right there it is. I will pull it, and you see that heart just lays down absolutely perfectly. Now I'm going to have to go in here and push my motif in and make it fit, and I want you to watch at the bottom what happens. I have to make a miter at the bottom too. Now I'm going to pick up the top of this lace tail, bring it over like that, and lay it down, and then I have a beautiful miter. And all I'll have to do is come in here and trim away that extra little piece of lace right there. Let me see if I can get him beside these pins. Well, I think I'm going to have to move around a little bit. Now, that's all trimmed away, and then I will pin the whole pillow, and after it's pinned, I will bring it over to the sewing machine and I will zigzag the laces down. And now I have a beautiful silk ribbon stitch for you. I'm pleased to have as my guest today Beverly Sheldrick from New Zealand. Beverly is the author of a book on silk ribbon embroidery entitled Colonial Inspirations. Beverly, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. It's good to be here. We're going to talk about today the side stitch rose. Now, it's very interesting what happens. You can see here is the rose here. Here we've done it, simply used it as a rosebud. And I've done it here as a rosebud, as the full flower. Now what happens is this, is that you put the needle in one side. You'll see how I've done it here, like this, which allows, when you pull the thread through, for the side of the ribbon to curl more on one side than on the other. You'll see here it's gone in this side, it's curled that way, in this one it's curled that way. Now we'll quickly run through the steps for this rose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then it comes across here, 6, 7, 8, 9, then the last few down here. So we'll very quickly do these. You can see how when I pull this ribbon like this, it goes like that. See how it went through, leaving you almost with a little knot at the top there. Once more, through there, like that, down here, and because I've put it on the other side, then when I put my thumbnail there, the curl is going to come on that side, giving us a delicious little point. We could, if we wanted to, make a lovely big rosebud of that if we wanted to, but we're going to keep on going like this, across, across, working from one side to the other. You'll also notice that the tension isn't terribly tight, it's quite loose. We're coming out again like that, over to here, down, across to here, like this. This rose actually is very lovely if it's done in the 4mm ribbon, And you'll see here that I have one that I've done using the smaller ribbon, and it makes it very, very pretty indeed. So there we are. We're now just going to come down and put in those last couple down the bottom like this, allowing lots of bounce at the side there, across to here, and coming down again like that, and which gives us a very pretty rose. Now the other thing, of course, which you can do if you wish, you can put little highlights in it by taking another thread and just putting them in here like that in between, which again will give you a very, very pretty rose.
Beverly, thank you so very much for being here with us to share that beautiful rose.
Thank you.
And now I have a very beautiful doll dress to share with you. This is the cutest little doll dress, and you are going to love this new shadow applique technique I have to share with you. The little dress is made out of a little Italian Pima cotton, has a little pinafore like all the dresses for the series do. This little bow is the new shadow applique by machine technique. Come down to the bottom of the skirt. Do you see this is a beautiful wing needle entredeaux and the little double hem with this new shadow applique technique that looks exactly like shadow work by hand. Now come on over here and I'm going to share with you how to do it. So help me. You look at that and you think, well, that has to be shadow work by hand, but it isn't. Okay, now let me show you in a big bow that'll be a little bit easier to see. First of all, I take a paper-backed fusible web. Has the fuzzy side is the kind that's the sticky side. I put it down on a piece of fabric. Here it is, I've done that. Paper-backed fusible web down on a piece of fabric, and I press it. And that means that the paper sticks to the fabric. Then, after I've stuck the paper to the fabric, I cut out all along this bow, and here's what I have after I cut it out. I have this beautiful bow and has the paper back on the back. Now it is time to take the fusible webbing, the paper-backed fusible webbing off. I'll put it down on the fabric and I will press it and it will be quote-unquote glued to the fabric. All right, I have to have a double layer now, so I take another, or here it is, all glued to the fabric. I take another piece of fabric, lay this down on that, and I simply straight stitch all the way around, and that's what makes it look exactly like shadow work by hand. All right, do you get the idea? I've straight stitched all the way around through both layers of fabric, and this is what it looks like after it's finished, straight stitched around through 2 layers of fabric. Now, let me show you how this happens with that little skirt. All right, here is my pinafore, and here is my hem to the skirt. All right, I have my 3 little tiny bows, and I will remove the piece of paper and put them down wherever I want them to be and press them down. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Then I turn up the outside of the petticoat of the pinafore, and next step, I come across here and I wing needle entredeaux the hem in, and of course I will go to the back and trim that excess hem away. Now here is that little technique I shared with you. All right, I'm going to straight stitch all the way around each one of these bows. Therefore it went through 2 layers, and then here I've taken the back and trimmed it away. And for the world, if you look at that, I promise you, you cannot tell that that's not shadow work by hand. Now I have another cute technique for you over here on the little pinafore for the series. This is the cutest little pinafore. I want you to look at the pinafore trim on this little collar. By the way, this is a little smocked pinafore. Do you see this darling trim? It is a double needle satin stitch with 2 colors, and it has a little tatting trim around it, and these little bugs are embroidery built in from a sewing machine. Now, isn't this cute? The little red jumper with black smocking underneath it. The first technique I'm going to share with you, before you smock your little jumper, you run your pleating threads through. Then I have drawn off my the armhole lines here. Now, if you'll come down with me to this one, I'm going to have to pull the pleating threads out because I don't want to smock into the armhole. I pull the pleating threads out and simply turn it over, right here, turn it over, and double stitch it down, and then I will smock the whole front of the little pinafore. Okay, let's do our double needle trim. This is the way we fix the collar. Draw off the pattern, of course, then come down here. Now let me show you on the bottom the first time, okay? This time I did the red and black double twin needle satin stitch right across here. You can see it's real small the first time around. Then I go back in here and trim away the fabric, and then I bring my trim up and either baste it or butt it to that very edge, and then go back and do my heavier double needle satin stitch. Now if you'll come up here and look at this side, that shows how it has the double needle satin stitch done in red and black, and at the same time you stitch it, you attach this trim, whether you use tatting or whatever you want to use next, but you do attach that trim. And now I have a perfectly beautiful angel quilt square for you. You are going to love this quilt square for today. The little angel that I'm sharing with you today has an applique hair, applique head, and her wings and her body are lace shaping done on a netting. And then the little bottom to her skirt is simply laces zigzag together, beading with insertion, and simply cut to make the little bottom of the dress. Let me share with you how that lace head was made. All right, first of all, I'm going to trace my pattern. By the way, I've blown this one up really large so you can see it. I didn't think you could see a teeny tiny one like that. Here's the lace, here's her hair, and here is a part of her face. I'm going to trace the pattern onto paper-backed fusible web. Then I'll cut out her face. I'm going to then, first of all, attach that to fabric. In this case, it's white silk dupioni and a gold silk dupioni. Then I cut out her face and her hair. Now I'm going to have to, before I actually press this down, I'm going to have to get this paper-backed web off, paper-backed bonding off of here. The easy way to do that, let me just show you right now. Just to take a pin, go down like this, and then slip the pin underneath there and pull it off. So we're going to pull this paperback off of the hair. Let me pull it off the little girl's hair, my little angel's hair, and that will be ready to iron down. And then we'll pull the backing off of this one and press it down. First of all, I will put her face down, and then I will put her hair. Hang on just a minute, let me turn it over just correctly. Then I will put her hair down on top of her face, as you can see, and I will applique these down. Now this is what it looks like. This is what her face and her wings look like after you've appliqued them down and after you've appliqued the wings onto the red silk dupioni. Now I would like for you to come with me to my attic. I just love this little dress. I bought this at an antique clothing show in Massachusetts. I do believe it's a Massachusetts piece. The top of the dress is absolutely beautiful and has this wonderful lace on it. It makes a square neckline and has the lace that goes around the neck. Now, if you can see that real closely, once again, this mother has stitched together two pieces of edging to make a wider piece of edging. And then around here, to make this cute little frou-frou in the front, she's taken her edging and stitched it around, kind of gathered it up, and put a little bit of silk ribbon embroidery in the middle. Now this sleeve I want to bring around because it's so unusual and really beautiful. The sleeve has a little puff sleeve with a bias binding, and then there is heavily gathered lace at the bottom of the bias binding, and look here, there's heavily gathered lace at the top, making a double row of lace around this sleeve, which I just love. More details, beautiful tucks coming across the front. Here's some more tucks in the middle, more tucks on this side. And as you can see, the fabric was a beautiful Swiss embroidery. Isn't that magnificent? Those round curls and all those beautiful things. But then look here on the bottom. More of the lace, more Swiss batiste, and two more pieces of absolutely magnificent lace finish off the bottom of that little beautiful dress. Thank you so much for joining me in my sewing room, and I hope you can be with me next time.